Let me begin by stating something grounded in both science and experience. The human body is not a passive machine. It's a highly adaptive system. It responds with extraordinary precision to the inputs we provide. So when I say this diet works very fast, I'm not leaning on hype. I'm referring to a set of biological principles that, when applied correctly, drive rapid and measurable change. Now, the word diet often triggers a range of reactions: frustration, fatigue, even skepticism. But let's reframe that word. A diet is not punishment. It's not deprivation. It is a tool, an intentional protocol used to shift internal states of physiology to achieve specific outcomes. The same way you wouldn't train aimlessly in the gym, you shouldn't eat aimlessly either. Precision matters, timing matters, and consistency, above all, matters. Here's the truth. The fastest changes occur when your nutrition, behavior, and biology are aligned. When you reduce highly processed carbohydrates, optimize your protein intake, and strategically time your meals to support your circadian biology, something remarkable happens. Your insulin sensitivity improves, your energy levels become stable, your hunger cues begin to recalibrate, your brain fog clears, fat oxidation ramps up. This isn't magic, it's chemistry, it's neuroscience, it's hormonal signaling, responding to inputs that are evolutionarily familiar to the body. Most people underestimate what the human system is capable of when it's in the right state. The mitochondria in your cells, your energy generators, are incredibly responsive to shifts in nutrient availability. Restricting your feeding window to 8-10 hours, for instance, not only promotes fat loss, but improves metabolic flexibility, cellular repair, and even gene expression patterns associated with longevity. The body is a responsive, adaptive system, not a passive machine. This simple idea, when truly understood, reshapes how we approach health, performance, and nutrition. Many people fall into the trap of believing that their body simply is, that it exists in a fixed state, defined by genetics or past habits. But that couldn't be further from the truth. The human body is in a constant state of flux, dynamically adjusting its internal processes in response to the signals we give it through food, light, movement, sleep, and stress. Think about what adaptation means. It's not just change, it's directed, intelligent change. Your cells are continuously sensing their environment and adjusting accordingly. When you reduce calorie intake or shift the timing of your meals, your body doesn't simply slow down and give up. It reallocates resources, alters hormone secretion, and even reprograms gene expression to adapt to the new conditions. So if you give it the right inputs, it adapts in ways that enhance energy use, sharpen mental clarity, and accelerate fat loss. Let's take a specific example. When you fast or go for extended periods without food, your body doesn't just burn through muscle and collapse. Instead, it triggers pathways like autophagy, cellular cleanup systems that remove damaged proteins and recycle them. Growth hormone secretion increases, helping to preserve lean muscle. Catecholamines like norepinephrine rise, increasing alertness and fat oxidation. These responses aren't accidents. They're the result of millions of years of evolution that prepared your body to respond intelligently to food scarcity. The same applies when you introduce high-quality food at the right time. If you train your body to expect nutrient intake in alignment with your circadian rhythm, meaning during the active phase of your day, you enhance insulin sensitivity, regulate leptin and ghrelin, your hunger hormones, and improve mitochondrial energy output. Your body doesn't passively absorb nutrients, it selectively takes them in, decides where they're most needed, and determines how they should be stored or utilized. Even muscle growth is an example of this adaptive response. You apply stress through resistance training, and your body interprets that signal as a demand for greater strength. It doesn't just repair the muscle, it rebuilds it stronger. The same mechanism applies to the brain. When you challenge it with new behaviors like changing your diet or fasting protocols, you trigger neuroplasticity, reinforcing new habits and making the next decision easier. What's critical to understand is that none of this happens randomly. Your body is waiting for cues, nutritional, behavioral, environmental. Every time you eat, move, sleep, or expose yourself to light, you're sending those signals. The system is always listening. That's why change can happen faster than most people think, because the machinery is already in place. You just have to give it the right inputs. So the question isn't whether your body can change, it's whether you're giving it the opportunity to. If you align your actions with the principles of biological adaptation, the response is not slow, it's powerful, intelligent, and fast. Diet is a tool to shift internal physiology, not a form of deprivation. This is a fundamental reframe that changes everything about how we approach food and behavior. Too often, the word diet is associated with restriction, guilt, or a temporary phase driven by willpower. But in reality, a properly structured diet is a biological intervention. It's a protocol designed to activate and regulate specific systems in the body that control energy balance, hormonal signaling, and even cognitive function. When people think of dieting as deprivation, they focus on what they're removing: less sugar, fewer calories, no snacks. But this mindset misses the point entirely. Dieting isn't about taking things away. It's about intentionally choosing inputs that communicate the right signals to the body. The body is always listening. What you eat tells your metabolism how to behave. It tells your brain what neurotransmitters to produce. It influences inflammatory pathways, gut microbiota composition, and even immune function. Let's take the example of insulin, one of the most powerful hormonal regulators in the body. Every time you eat, you influence insulin levels. A diet high in processed carbohydrates and sugars tells the body to spike insulin repeatedly, which over time can lead to insulin resistance. But a diet structured around whole foods, high in fiber and healthy fats, can reduce the insulin load and allow cells to become more sensitive again. This is not about restriction, it's about intelligent signaling. The same applies to satiety hormones like leptin and ghrelin. If your diet is composed of nutrient-dense foods with adequate protein and healthy fats, your body receives the message that it is well nourished. Ghrelin, which signals hunger, decreases. Leptin, which signals fullness, increases. You feel more satisfied on less food, not because you're forcing it, but because your body has received the correct inputs. Additionally, certain foods can trigger beneficial stress responses, known as hormetic responses, in the body. For example, intermittent fasting or ketogenic protocols can elevate ketone levels, which serve not only as an alternative fuel source for the brain, but also influence signaling pathways related to inflammation, cognitive clarity, and fat oxidation. These changes are not side effects, they are outcomes of a deliberate dietary tool being applied with precision. It's also important to recognize that diet impacts mood and mental state. A diet rich in omega-3s, B vitamins, and minerals like magnesium and zinc can upregulate neurotransmitter function, improving mood stability and resilience to stress. This isn't psychological placebo, it's biochemistry. What this all means is that diet isn't just about weight loss. It's not just about counting calories. It's about controlling the internal environment of the body with intention. That's why a well-designed diet works quickly. It taps into natural systems already in place and leverages them. Food becomes a signal, not a struggle. When you start to view diet as a precision tool, a way to steer metabolism, regulate hormones, and optimize mental function, you begin to understand how powerful it really is. And it becomes something you want to do, not something you have to. Precision in nutrient timing and composition drives rapid change. This is one of the most underestimated aspects of dietary intervention. Most people focus on what they eat, but neglect when and how they eat it. Yet, from a biological perspective, timing and composition interact in powerful ways to determine how the body responds. The body operates on rhythms, circadian rhythms, hormonal cycles, digestive patterns. When your nutrient intake is aligned with these rhythms, the result is dramatically improved metabolic efficiency, fat oxidation, and cognitive clarity. Let's break this down. First, nutrient composition matters because different macronutrients have different hormonal effects. Protein, for instance, stimulates the release of peptide YY and GLP-1, two hormones that promote satiety. It also initiates muscle protein synthesis via the mTOR pathway, which is key for preserving lean mass during fat loss. Fats, especially healthy monounsaturated and omega-3 fats, modulate inflammation and support hormone production. Carbohydrates, especially when refined, spike insulin sharply, but when consumed at the right times and in the right amounts, they can support recovery, glycogen replenishment, and even improve sleep. But composition alone isn't enough. Timing is what amplifies or dampens those effects. Eating the bulk of your calories during your active hours, typically earlier in the day, supports better glucose control and reduces the risk of insulin resistance. Research consistently shows that eating late at night disrupts circadian biology, leading to impaired metabolism, reduced fat burning, and elevated cortisol. In contrast, time-restricted feeding, where food intake is limited to a consistent 8-10-hour window, improves metabolic markers even without changing calorie content. It's not magic. It's alignment with your biology. There's also a neurochemical aspect to timing. Cortisol, a hormone that naturally peaks in the morning, is designed to mobilize energy. If you eat your first meal in that window, particularly one high in protein and healthy fats, you stabilize blood sugar and support dopamine and acetylcholine production, neurotransmitters tied to motivation and focus. Eating high glycemic foods during this time can do the opposite, create a roller coaster of insulin and fatigue. Then there's the post-training window. After resistance training or high-intensity interval training, the body is especially insulin sensitive. This is an optimal time to consume carbohydrates and protein together, as the nutrients are shuttled into muscle tissue more efficiently, supporting repair and growth while minimizing fat storage. Even sleep is affected by nutrient timing. Consuming a small amount of slow digesting carbohydrates in the evening can aid in the production of serotonin and melatonin, facilitating better sleep onset. But a large, heavy, or sugar-laden meal late at night can disrupt sleep cycles and impair recovery. This is the power of precision. When nutrient timing and composition are tailored to your biological rhythms and behavioral patterns, the body responds rapidly. Energy becomes more stable, fat loss accelerates, cognitive function sharpens, and none of this requires drastic measures. Just thoughtful, consistent application of principles that are already embedded in how your physiology is wired. Precision isn't about perfection. It's about aligning strategy with biology. Reducing processed carbohydrates and optimizing protein improves insulin sensitivity. This is one of the most immediate and powerful levers you can pull to initiate rapid physiological change. Insulin sensitivity is at the core of metabolic health, and its dysfunction is one of the first markers of chronic conditions such as obesity, type 2 diabetes, and even neurodegenerative disease. By changing the types and timing of the carbohydrates you consume and by ensuring consistent, adequate protein intake, you can significantly shift your metabolic state in a matter of days, not weeks or months. Let's start with the issue of processed carbohydrates. Foods that are high in refined sugars and low in fiber, such as white bread, pastries, sugary cereals, and sweetened drinks, spike blood glucose rapidly. In response, the pancreas secretes insulin to shuttle that glucose into cells for energy or storage. But when this happens repeatedly, especially in the absence of physical activity or metabolic demand, your cells begin to down-regulate their sensitivity to insulin. This means more insulin is required to do the same job, and the cycle compounds. Elevated insulin over time not only promotes fat storage, but also prevents fat breakdown, creating a metabolic bottleneck. Now contrast that with a reduction in processed carbohydrate intake. When you remove these high glycemic, low nutrient foods from your diet, you reduce the frequency and magnitude of insulin spikes. This gives your cells a chance to reset and become more responsive. Your fasting glucose levels begin to normalize. Your body becomes more efficient at utilizing stored fat for energy, and inflammation starts to decline. These changes can begin within 72 hours of making the dietary shift. The system is that responsive. But there's another essential piece of the puzzle: protein. High quality protein, particularly from sources like eggs, fish, poultry, lean meats, and legumes, provides the building blocks for nearly every function in the body, from muscle repair to neurotransmitter production. Importantly, protein has a stabilizing effect on blood sugar. When you consume protein with a meal, it slows the absorption of glucose and blunts the insulin response. This not only keeps energy levels more consistent, but also reduces hunger and cravings later on. Protein also has a high thermic effect, meaning it requires more energy to digest and metabolize compared to carbohydrates or fats. This makes it more metabolically demanding, which contributes to overall energy expenditure. In the context of weight loss or metabolic repair, this is a significant advantage. Furthermore, adequate protein supports the maintenance of lean body mass during caloric deficits, which preserves metabolic rate and enhances fat loss. The synergy between reduced processed carbs and optimized protein intake is what drives rapid improvements. You're simultaneously lowering the factors that impair insulin signaling while elevating those that enhance it. This creates a hormonal environment where fat loss becomes more efficient, appetite becomes more regulated, and energy levels become more stable. Ultimately, the body thrives when it's given clean, unambiguous signals. Processed carbohydrates create noise, biochemical confusion. Protein, on the other hand, provides structure and support. When you remove the noise and amplify the signal, the result is fast, measurable metabolic improvement. Strategic meal timing enhances circadian rhythm and metabolic efficiency. This is one of the most overlooked yet powerful aspects of dietary intervention. The human body is governed by an internal clock system or circadian rhythm that regulates everything from hormone secretion and digestion to energy metabolism and cognitive performance. When we eat in sync with this internal clock, we optimize the body's ability to process nutrients, manage blood sugar, and maintain hormonal balance. When we eat out of sync, especially late at night, we disrupt those systems, leading to fatigue, fat gain, insulin resistance, and poor recovery. The circadian system isn't just about sleep. It includes clocks in nearly every tissue in the body, including the liver, pancreas, gut, and fat cells. These peripheral clocks are highly sensitive to feeding cues. When you eat your first meal, you're doing more than fueling the body. You're giving it a timestamp. You're telling your internal systems, the day has started. That signal initiates a cascade of metabolic activity, increased insulin sensitivity, heightened digestive enzyme production, and enhanced glucose uptake. But the body is only primed for this for a limited window each day. Consistently eating during a defined window, such as an 8 to 10 hour feeding period, amplifies this circadian alignment. It strengthens the timing signals across all your organs, leading to greater synchronization. And when your internal clocks are in sync, everything functions more efficiently. Your body becomes better at storing energy when it should during active hours and burning it when it's at rest during fasting hours. You sleep better, recover faster, and experience fewer energy dips during the day. On the flip side, eating late at night when melatonin levels are rising and your body is preparing for rest sends mixed signals. Your metabolism slows in the evening, insulin sensitivity drops, and digestion becomes less efficient. A high-calorie meal at this time is more likely to be stored as fat and can interfere with the body's ability to produce melatonin and enter deep sleep stages. Even if calorie intake remains the same, eating out of sync with your circadian rhythm can lead to weight gain and metabolic disruption. Strategic meal timing also plays a role in appetite regulation. Ghrelin, the hormone that signals hunger, follows a predictable rhythm that adapts to your eating patterns. If you eat at consistent times each day, ghrelin adjusts accordingly, leading to more predictable hunger signals and fewer cravings. Random or late night eating disrupts this pattern and often leads to overeating or unnecessary snacking. Furthermore, time-restricted eating doesn't require you to count calories. When you compress your eating window, many of the benefits occur simply because your body has a longer fasting period to engage in repair processes, like autophagy, mitochondrial cleanup, and hormonal resetting. This fasted state becomes a powerful metabolic tool. In short, when you align meal timing with your body's natural rhythms, you reduce friction in nearly every biological process. It's not just about what you eat, but when you eat that determines how efficiently your body uses food as fuel, how well you sleep, and how effectively you burn fat and maintain energy throughout the day. Mitochondria and hormonal signaling rapidly respond to dietary inputs. This is a key concept in understanding why certain diets work quickly and effectively. Your body is not static. It's a responsive living system where every cell is constantly adjusting to internal and external cues. Two of the most sensitive and immediate systems that react to dietary changes are mitochondrial function and hormonal signaling pathways. When you make intelligent food choices, these systems can begin to shift within hours or days, not weeks or months, because they're designed to detect and respond to energy availability, nutrient quality, and metabolic stress. Mitochondria are the power plants of your cells. They are responsible for producing ATP, the energy currency of the body. What many people don't realize is that mitochondrial efficiency and quantity are heavily influenced by your diet. When you reduce processed carbohydrates and stabilize blood sugar, mitochondria begin to shift from glucose-dependent energy production to increased fat oxidation. This change is not only more stable in terms of energy supply, but it also produces fewer reactive oxygen species, which means less cellular damage and inflammation. Additionally, certain dietary protocols such as intermittent fasting or ketogenic eating create a metabolic environment that promotes mitochondrial biogenesis, the process of creating new mitochondria. This means more cellular energy, better endurance, improved cognitive performance, and even greater resilience against stress. These shifts begin quickly. In fact, studies show that mitochondrial adaptations can begin within just a few days of dietary intervention. On the hormonal side, food choices send chemical signals that impact how your body stores fat, builds muscle, regulates hunger, and processes energy. Insulin, for example, is highly responsive to carbohydrate intake. High glycemic meals cause rapid spikes in insulin, which promotes fat storage and suppresses fat burning. By contrast, a diet lower in processed carbohydrates and higher in protein and healthy fats results in more stable insulin levels and greater access to stored fat as an energy source. Other hormones like leptin and ghrelin, which regulate satiety and hunger, also respond to dietary inputs. A nutrient-dense diet rich in whole foods, fiber, and protein helps normalize these hormones, often reducing cravings and naturally lowering caloric intake without conscious restriction. Cortisol, the stress hormone, can also be positively influenced by proper meal timing and nutrient quality. Stable blood sugar and consistent eating windows help reduce cortisol variability, improving mood, sleep, and recovery. Thyroid hormones, which regulate metabolism, are sensitive to calorie quality and timing. Under conditions of nutrient density and metabolic balance, thyroid function stabilizes, supporting better energy output and metabolic rate. And let's not forget the sex hormones, testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone, which are all influenced by fat intake, micronutrient status, and overall energy availability. When you feed your body in alignment with its biological needs, hormonal balance is restored far faster than most people expect. Your mitochondria and hormone systems are hardwired to respond to what you eat. If you provide the right inputs through quality, timing, and consistency, these systems recalibrate quickly. The result is improved energy, fat loss, reduced cravings, and enhanced overall performance, all driven by biology that is already prepared to adapt. Aligning behavior with biology produces fast, sustainable results. This principle is at the core of effective, lasting transformation. The body is not something to fight against, it is something to work with. It's governed by rhythms, feedback loops, and adaptive mechanisms that are already in place. When you begin to understand and respect those biological systems, every decision, from when you eat to how you sleep to what you consume, starts to create momentum. And that momentum leads to changes that feel natural rather than forced. And those changes happen much faster than most people realize when the approach is biologically aligned. Modern lifestyles often create a mismatch between behavior and biology. We stay up late under artificial lights, eat at random times, snack throughout the day, skip sunlight exposure, and move far less than our physiology is built for. These behaviors confuse the body's internal systems, disrupt hormonal rhythms, impair energy metabolism, and promote fat storage. When we ignore biology, even the most disciplined efforts feel like an uphill battle. But when we shift our behavior to match our biology, the resistance drops and the results accelerate. Take, for example, the circadian rhythm. This is not just a sleep-wake cycle. It regulates metabolism, hormone release, appetite, and cognitive function. By aligning food intake, movement, and sleep with the natural light-dark cycle, you support the body's optimal performance state. Eating during daylight hours sleeping in full darkness, and getting early morning sunlight are simple behaviors that send powerful biological signals. These signals reinforce healthy hormone cycles, improve insulin sensitivity, and enhance fat burning efficiency. Exercise is another example. The body is primed for physical activity in the late morning to early afternoon, when coordination, strength, and metabolic readiness are at their peak. Training at this time, especially in a fasted or semi-fasted state, triggers a stronger adaptation response. When followed by nutrient intake time for recovery, the body uses those nutrients more effectively to repair and build rather than store. That's an example of behavior aligned with biology, using timing and context to enhance the impact of the same effort. Nutrition is perhaps the most immediate domain where alignment shows rapid results. When you consume foods that your body recognizes minimally processed, nutrient dense, and consumed in a consistent window, you reduce digestive stress, stabilize blood sugar, and support hormone regulation. This reduces cravings, improves mood, and leads to effortless reductions in calorie intake without counting or restriction. These effects build on themselves because they restore trust between the body and brain. The best part of aligning with biology is that it doesn't require extreme measures. You're not forcing change through willpower or rigid rules. You're letting your physiology do the work. This makes the results more sustainable because they aren't rooted in deprivation or effort. They're rooted in cooperation. And the feedback loops created, more energy, better sleep, less hunger, improved mood, make it easier to continue making the right choices. Sustainable results happen quickly when the effort matches the body's design. When you stop fighting biology and start listening to it, the system responds.